Hi everyone, I'm Stephen and welcome to Audio Nautica. Today is a day that I have been looking forward to for a very long time. About 4 years ago actually, because it's about 4 years ago that I got my Accuphase C-202 Preamplifier that you might just be able to see behind this cardboard box, sitting on the bottom shelf underneath the spectacular Sansui AU-X11. But the AU-X11 was actually always intended to be a bit of a stopgap. It was always intended to be a secondary amplifier until I got, guess what? What's in this box. But this is also a day of fear and trepidation because there's obviously an inherent risk to buying old amplifiers. And I'd managed that risk. The Sansui and the Accuphase I'd both bought from the same dealer in Japan, and they'd totally been gone through, they'd been totally sorted. I've been waiting for 4 years for another one to come up from the same dealer, and it has not happened, just one hasn't come up. So I'd been kind of watching Yahoo Auctions, and yep, guess what I did? I've taken a huge risk, and I have bought an amplifier on Yahoo Auctions. I did buy it through a Japanese buying service just to manage some of the process for me. I think all up this has cost me about 3,000 Australian dollars. So if it all goes bad, I will have lost a fair whack of money. But fingers crossed that will not be the case. The box does look like it's taken a few whacks. One of the things about the Japanese dealer that I bought those other things from is they pack them spectacularly well. We'll see how well this is packed. Obviously big heavy amplifiers do not like being dropped. So I don't know what kind of tape this is they've used. It's really strong tape. I've never seen tape like this before. It's be some sort of a cloth tape or something. So anyway, see how we go. Okay. Bubble wrap, bubble wrap, bubble wrap. Okay, fair bit of bubble wrap. Polystyrene on the corners, but it's not very thick. Wouldn't take much to break that. And it doesn't completely fill the space out to the box, but okay, it looks like it actually is double boxed. So that gives me a fair bit of relief. I did not know whether they were going to double box it. It is double boxed, so let's get this box out of the big box. Well, anyway, the outer box seems to have done its job in that this inner box is not damaged at all. So that is really good. Okay, well, I haven't seen anything like this before, but what is this? How does this work? You know, that almost looks like that was sprayed in there. I've never seen anything like that. It's like they put that plastic lining in there and then they sprayed that stuff in is what it looks like. But here we are. This is what we are looking for. Let's see if we can get it out. There we are. Look at that. I did pay a little more for this than I wanted to. But the reason I did so is because quite a few of the ones that do come up on Yahoo Auctions, they look fairly beaten up. And this one I think is in pretty nice condition. Front panel looks quite nice. There's only a tiny few little marks on the front panel. Often the top covers can be quite beaten up. There's just a little bit of a mark here, which I knew about, it was in the photographs. But then the timbers on the side, this is persimmon wood. There's a few little marks here and there, but it's really quite nice. I mean, this thing was made in 1987. So yeah, this is in really nice condition. It's got a hardwired cord on it, which is for 100 volts AC. But I'm 99% sure that with most of these early Accuphases, it has the transformers set up with the windings to run on anything between 100 to 240, but you've got to change the strapping of the transformers. I did that on the preamp, and they were both made, they were made as a pair. They're made to go together, the C-202 and the P-102. 1987 this comes from. So there's a screw missing there. But it looks quite nice. Okay guys, I have got the covers off this thing now. Just want to give you a bit of a closer look. Just look at this absolutely gorgeous front panel. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to get this amplifier. This is one of the first of the Accuphases that came up with this kind of a front panel, which I think is even retained to today, this kind of design, whereas the earlier ones had a much different kind of a look. And there we got those controls hidden underneath there, not that there's very many controls. And then if we have a look inside the unit itself, we see this absolutely gorgeous dual mono layout where we have twin power transformers, twin pairs of electrolytic capacitors, and then this is a fully balanced Class A all the way through design. So because it's fully balanced, you have one amplifier for the plus side and one amplifier for the minus side. So that means there's 4 amplifiers in total. 1, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that just gorgeous? So this will be fully Class A, and that will match up with this C-202, which is also fully Class A the whole way through. So this is just a bit dusty, it's a bit cobwebby. Let's turn over and have a look at the other side. So we see the bottom side of those amplifier modules is there. A couple of bridge rectifiers here. And one of the interesting things I noticed is that there's no fuse holder. Obviously there are fuses, so I had to have a bit of a look around for them, and there they are down there. Because I'm changing this thing over to run on 240 volts. It came from Japan, so it's set up to run on 100 volts. And I have changed it over to run on 240, but the fuse values change, so I do not have the correct value at the moment, so I need to go and get some of those. And other little trap for young players is that because there are two mains transformers, it means that there are two transformers that need to be changed over to run on 240. So it would be a fairly catastrophic mistake to change one of them over, forget to do the other one, plug it in, and then have a rather big bang. So that's a very quick look at the insides. I'm just going to give this a bit of a de-dust now. Okay, so I've just given this a good clean up. That's come up quite nicely. Quite happy with how that's turned out. And I just want to quickly just show you a couple of other little things. This board here, this is the protection board. But this board here is quite interesting. This converts the single-ended input from the RCAs into a balanced signal. I mentioned that this amplifier is balanced the whole way through. That's fine if you have a balanced input. This amplifier works best with a balanced input, and that's those inputs there in the middle of screen. But if you don't have a balanced source, then you need to feed it with RCAs. So this little board here converts that single-ended input into a balanced input before it goes into the amplifier modules. So in my view, it's a whole lot better not to want to use that board, because it's just a whole lot more electronics that we don't really want. The purest way to drive this amplifier is to feed it a balanced input, which will then go straight into our amplifier modules and straight out to our speakers via our protection board. And that's exactly what we want. And if we just have a quick look at the back, because I don't think that I have showed this to you, there isn't really that much to see. But yeah, there's those unbalanced or single-ended inputs, which we don't want to use. Here are our balanced inputs, which we will be feeding from the balanced outputs of my gorgeous Accuphase C-202. And we have our speaker outputs, and there's a couple of unswitched power outputs as well, and our power lead, and that is it. So there's really not much to this amplifier. So the next stage, once I get hold of my fuses, is to get this girl powered up. Okay guys, a moment of truth is here. Well, some relays pulled in. There's a light on. There's a light on there. I'm not sure what that means. I heard some relays pull in. This is the, I'm measuring the DC on one of the outputs, that's millivolts, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so far so good, I think, hopefully. I just discovered something as to why the meter lights are not on. It's pretty clever actually. When you turn the meter on, the lights come on. So that's pretty cool. Okay guys, so I have got this thing hooked up for adjusting the bias. I've got it hooked up for the right channel only. It's really quite simple to access, and that each module has got these test points right on the top of the board, and then there's a little potentiometer down the other end of the board. So this has been sitting here running like this for an hour. I've generally found that half an hour is not long enough to adjust these. It really needs to be at operating temperature, and it's really surprising the difference that it makes in the readings. So these seem to have more or less stabilized. The right hand meter that you can see there, it's now reading, let's call it 100 milliamps. When I started, so when it was dead cold, it read 125 milliamps. So that just shows you how much of a difference to the quiescent currents running through this thing are, if you like. The difference between being cold and operating temperatures. Now, I do not have a service manual for this thing, but the research that I have found online seems to indicate that the bias, well, these readings are sensible, let's put it that way. So I think I'm actually going to leave the one that's reading 98. I'm going to leave that. But the other one I think is a little bit low. So I'm just going to adjust that one up so it matches the other one. And then we need to look at the left-hand channel. So there we go, look at that. These are more or less reading the same thing now, which is exactly what I want. Okay, there we go, that's the left channel. These are both more or less about the same. So I think it's about time to actually plug some speakers into this thing. So there we are, guys. This fantastic Accuphase P-102 has the covers on, is hooked up to my wonderful JBL 4333A speakers. I've been looking forward to getting this system completed for about 3 years now. I looked up the paperwork, it was 2021 that I got that C-202. And yes, it's only a 50 watt amplifier, but with efficient speakers like these JBLs, that should be plenty. There are higher power Accuphase ones out there, but they go for really big money. There's an A60, and I think they might have even done one that was higher power than that. But they get snaffled up very, very quickly when they come up from the dealers, and they go for, yeah, big money. So I figured that for me, this is a sweet spot that I'm looking for, and I'm very, very pleased with this. I will do a refurb on this amplifier at some point. I'm not going to do that just at the moment. It does run quite warm, as you'd expect with Class A. Fully balanced Class A, I might add, so that means that there's 2 amplifiers per channel. So it does it does run quite warm, yes indeed, that is the case. And because of that, it will need a refurb. Some of the electrolytic capacitors could be getting a little bit old and tired. They're not going to erupt into flames just at the moment, but that's something that will need to be done. So we'll call this a wrap. I will make a video on this C-202 at another time. So if you might like to consider subscribing to my channel so that you know about that video when that comes out, and give me a like if you enjoyed this video. You can support my work over at Patreon, patreon.com/AudioNautica. And I really look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.